So Dave Graziano graduated from St. John's University with a Bachelor's of Science in Sports Management, where he joined our New York Row chapter. After graduation, he served on the headquarters staff in a variety of roles, including Regional Director, Director of Balanced Man Initiative, and Director of Leadership Programs. Since then, Dave has facilitated at and helped run numerous Carlson Leadership Academies, Ruck Leadership Institute, and conclaves. Currently, Dave is Director of Marketing at CVS Health. Dave, his wife Bridget, and two sons, Liam and Aiden, currently reside in Rhode Island. So now I will kick it over to Dave.
Thanks, Pat. Really excited to be here. Quick mic check. Can everybody hear me? I have my Drew Carey microphone here, making sure that I come in loud and clear. Great. That sounds awesome. Again, really excited to be here. Coming to you live from formerly my kid's bedroom that is now turned into my office. We're going to talk tonight, thinking about 15 minutes, maybe a little more or less, talking about communicating your product and its value for potential buyers. So if I move forward, really, if I was to throw out an agenda for our dialogue tonight, quickly establish some credibility with you guys, you got to know who the heck I am. But then beyond that, the who, the what, and the how of communications. How would I give you some tips on how to actually communicate in a way that is effective and ultimately drives business outcomes? And when I say business outcomes, for this group, clearly it is encouraging and getting potential new members to join our organization. After we go through sort of that framework of the who, the what, and the how, I want to dive one step deeper, which is a tactic that we use and most marketers use actually, which is this concept of building a brief. And a brief is more often than not a way to inspire creative organizations to build content, whether that is everything from an ad campaign that we might put on TV all the way down to just a talk track and a conversation. You know, if we have a brief, it's sort of one single source of truth that lets us engage with any specific target in a very specific way. And so I actually built out a sample brief that we can walk through pretty quickly that I think it would be a nice way to help explain what the heck I was talking about for those first 12 minutes. Then we'll spend a little bit of time. I wouldn't be doing my job here if I didn't have the opportunity to talk through sort of 3 tips and tricks that I've found to be helpful, not just in talking about the fraternity, but in carrying them through. So life skills that can be developed, that if you can work on these 3 tips, ultimately it will land you in a better place post-grad and well into your career afterwards. And I even have some, I'll call them follow-up actions or things that you can be doing to make it tangible, right? So practice tips, things that you can try on. You don't like it, take it off. You didn't hurt me. Heck, we're only having this virtual engagement today, but if you do like it, it can likely impact your role as a VP of recruitment or as you are driving towards your recruitment goals. Lastly, I really do want to spend a majority of the time or as much as I can on Q&A, giving you guys the opportunity just to ask a whole bunch of questions because that's usually where we get into the real meat beyond the presentation. So don't hesitate to shoot those in the chat. So Pat already did a great job of covering my sort of journey here, but very quickly, originally from Providence, Rhode Island, went all the way to New York, went to St. John's University, not too far away, but we had a fantastic basketball program back then. Over the last 15 years, it's been crap. Okay. Just straight up. It's been awful. And it's been terrible to be a fan of them, but it is great to have an alma mater that introduced me to an organization that I've had made lifelong friends from within my chapter, and then ultimately leading to the far right-hand side with that map of the United States, where I traveled for the fraternity actually in Southern California, Arizona, and New Mexico, and actually El Paso, but I couldn't figure out how to color in that part of Texas all by itself. But so I traveled those 3 1/15 of a state, had a fantastic time out there, and ended up working on the headquarters staff. In the time that I was on the headquarters staff, I actually imported my girlfriend down to Richmond, Virginia. She lived down there for 2.5 years. And there she is. It's actually a girl I met in 5th grade. Her name's Bridget. My 2 sons, Liam and Aiden. 2 redheaded kids, which is very odd. She has pink hair in that picture. So I guess hair is like irrelevant in our family because I clearly am not going to have much soon enough. But we are, it's super fun. And I really see them as future SigEps It's really part of our conversations regularly around my buddies from the fraternity. I ended up working for the Patriots, which was kind of cool, I think. I ended up moving on from that because I had just spent a whole bunch of time talking about purpose, talking about things that I cared about, and the connection between that and actually being able to make a living. And what I found was that ultimately I was, selling advertising space at a stadium, and I couldn't really connect that all the way down to what my purpose was as an individual, or more specifically, how I can be better and help the country be better. So I moved on. I went to a small organization called Rise Engineering, which is an energy services firm, taking out bad stuff, putting in good stuff. And ultimately, that transitioned to an opportunity that was presented to me where I get to work and do get to work at one of the nation's leading companies here with CVS Health and CVS Pharmacy. And so some of the work that I do at CVS Pharmacy, very specifically, is our pharmacy campaigns, right? So everything from TV to the wall boards when you walk into a store, everything in between, social media campaigns, display ads, and everything in between. Makes for a incredibly interesting time to be in the healthcare space. It's pretty wild to know that we are having conversations right now with the CDC about how to best enable our 9,000, 10,000 stores across the country to be able to vaccinate 300 million people across the country, or at least the 60% of the country right now who are willing to get the vaccine. So I think the thing that I really did want to lean into here, and the last piece I'll do talking about SigEp, CVS, because this is definitely not a commercial for them. But what I wanted to talk to you about was how we have chosen to lead with purpose. So we've actually used the purpose of our organization as our primary mechanism for getting folks to come use us, shop us, fill our prescriptions, pick out beauty products, grab a Snickers and a Diet Coke. I mean, if there's something that you need to do, hopefully, we are within 3 miles of 90% of the population in the US. But normally our advertising and the marketing that we do when we're talking about our products isn't about grab one more prescription or one more pill or one more Snickers. When we are leading with our message, we want to talk about the purpose of our organization. So what is that? So we, divested ourselves from cigarettes 6 years ago, right as I was joining the organization. So that was a big step. We actually took $2 billion out of our bottom line. There are companies that won't make $2 billion in their company lifetime. And we took out $2 billion from our annual bottom line to divest ourselves from there because it didn't meet selling those cigarettes, handing over one more pack was antithetical to the purpose of our organization, which is helping people on their path to better health. Now, there's other things here. I could talk about the work that we do with opioids. I can talk about the fact that our beauty mark, or that Beauty Unaltered campaign that we've launched, is actually helping women who, 6 out of 10 young girls at the age of 12 actually see themselves as being overweight, and they have a incorrect view of what is beautiful. And most of that is driven by Photoshop and all these things that people are doing to marketing campaigns. And what we've decided to do, again, connected to our purpose, is recognizing that if we pull that back, if we actually show photos the way they're supposed to be without doing all the dancing and all the photoshopping, and show women as they are, advertisements as they are, it actually will do a ton for the country and for the mental health of those in the country, especially those who are super, super young. So I won't get into all those, but the point of this slide was to basically say to you, look, if you lead with purpose and you put that on Front Street, people will actually come to you. There's a reason why 40% of the country is coming to CVS to fill their prescriptions. And more often than not, it is because the campaigns and the stories that we are going to tell are going to be around things like these, as opposed to just saying, hey, we sell prescriptions and Powerade. So the challenge of today, though, is how might we actually build a talk track or a campaign or assets or things that can help communicate the value or communicate why someone should choose to join the best fraternity in the country, to join SigEp. And I don't, all of you said yes at some point. So there's some reason why you said yes. And so keep that in the back of your mind, because we might get to that, or I'd be interested in hearing down the road, or even in the comments later, what was the reason you joined SigEp? But I'll get to mine in a little bit here. So as I was framing out the conversation, I realized the best place to start is how I think about every campaign that I'm going to put in market. And it's who's the audience, what are our actual strategic differentiators, and lastly, how can I communicate this value in a simple way? And so I started to say, okay, if I was going back in the day and I was a VP of recruitment or on a recruitment team, what would be the things I would do if I was just to look through, these three pillars? And so, okay, college age men, check. Attending your university or my university where I go to school, great, got to get that. And then if I need an audience, so I need to really key in on one specific group, because really I could try and boil the ocean, right? I could try and go after every college age man who goes to my university, but at a minimum, I have to start with a couple of key points. So let's just take first year students as my primary audience, and then secondary, maybe I'd say upperclassmen, right? Or second through fourth year students. Now, I'm not even going to get into all the other ways that you can cut apart this audience to really get to a fundamental number that makes sense for how many folks we'll say could be eligible, right? So they got to have a GPA of a certain number. They have to be involved in certain things. They have to be able to carry a conversation with a human. And that feels like an important thing. Like I would want to dial in super tight on who that audience is to give me a great understanding of who I'm chasing after and tailor my communications afterwards based on who that person is and where they are in that sort of journey, right? So that's the audience pillar. Second is this concept of like strategic differentiators. What actually makes you different as an organization? What makes the organization unique? And that way, again, if I'm thinking about that audience, I can tailor that message and make it specific, relevant, and timely. In other words, I know that I'm getting to someone with a message that's going to be relevant to them, and it's going to be super tight. It will be like I've said it before, and it'll be at a time that can ultimately get them to try and quote unquote buy, right? They'll be interested in joining. It's timely. You've hit them with the right message at the right time. And in marketing, we would say right channel as well, right? So did I email them? Did I Skype them? Did I text them? Did I send them a TV message over the top, or a Hulu ad because they're free and didn't want to buy the subscription? And then lastly, it's the concept of communicating value, right? Simplifying that message in such a way that it is human, right? So it is human to human contact here. We are in a situation within the fraternity where we do have to have conversations with one another. And so if we are going to be genuine in the way that we reach out to one another, we want to make sure that when we ask that question, are you interested in joining, or would you be interested in joining Sigma Phi Epsilon because we're interested in you, that they're ready to say yes. So I want to take a couple more minutes and just dive into those pillars, one double click on each one, and then we'll get in to that brief conversation. So again, I already framed this out. I'm not going to go too much deeper here, but it's the concept of know your audience and where to find them. And there's 100 ways, and there are a bunch of folks on this call right now who can help you unlock where to find these folks. So I don't want to I don't want to go all the way into these, but let's just say that there's 3 audiences that I want to target. There's new students, there's student leaders, and there's upperclassmen, and student leaders probably links between the two. So I'm chasing new students and upperclassmen. I want to get to know everything I possibly can about what it is to be a new student at my university on any given day. And let's be fair. You guys were just new students freshmen within the last 3 years, maybe 5 for some of you, but whatever. Like recently, you guys were freshmen. And so you know what the experience is. You know where they are, and you know what it's like to be brand new on campus. And so you need to put yourself in their shoes, not in the shoes of I'm in the fraternity, I know what it's all about. You actually have to put them, what are their fears, concerns, questions, things that get them excited. Layer on the fact that we're in this pandemic situation and things are not normal as they have been. Again, I would layer that on and keep going, and so you can really get to understand them at an atomic level. So then, what the heck are you going to talk about? right? And some of this stuff may seem prescriptive or really elementary, but to me, this is at the crux or at the core of how we can articulate the fraternity experience or your product in general, whatever it may be, in the most in a way that can actually drive action. Actually drive action. Yes. So like if you wanted to start talking about brotherhood and values and friendships and alumni and network and chapter meetings, that's great. And every other fraternity can talk about those things too. Every single one can talk about the fact that they have great brotherhood. Every single one can name values that they have. And it's just old school words or things that they hold so standard and so true. I'm not disagreeing. I very much believe in virtue, diligence, brotherly love. I very much ascribe myself to sound mind and sound body outside of the COVID experience lately. It's put on a couple pounds. But the concept that we are striving towards are absolutely relevant. But ultimately, they don't dramatically make us different than any other organization. And so what I would challenge you to do is work through what are those strategic differentiators, things like the Balanced Man program, the Balanced Man scholarship, learning communities, the leadership programs. Heck, the fact that you guys, there's 60 people on a Zoom call on a Tuesday from across the country to communicate and work together to make themselves better. Like these are really incredible and head to mouth, unbelievable ways to articulate what this fraternity experience can be for somebody. And then I would also layer in this last one that I wrote out, which is like, what are you doing to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And being able to identify what are those differentiators that maybe do sneak into table stakes, right? Maybe do sneak into the fact that you can have a great relationship and friendships that cut across the country. The fact that there is this brotherhood where you have alumni and volunteers coming back to support and help you through your college experience, like that kind of stuff is relevant today, especially if I'm thinking about that first year student who's not getting the stereotypical first 2-3 months of school underway. So I really do think those might actually play as strategic differentiators go forward, at least through the balance of this year and into next. And so it would be relevant to bring them up. I just might balance them equally against some of those other differentiators that you can talk about. So now, if I have to simplify it down, I talked to you about this concept of a brief, which is like making it so simple that I can regurgitate and know exactly what to say to the right person at the right time. Well, before you get down to that granular and atomic level, we need to start at sort of a very high level. What do I want them to think? How do I want them to feel? And ultimately, what do I want them to do? Right? So if I was thinking, if I was a potential new member and SigEp had, in the VP of recruitment and the recruitment team had done a fantastic job of helping me understand why SigEp was the right place for me, I would be thinking that SigEp is a different fraternity. It offers a robust and unique experience. Now, what does that mean? I would feel inside, right? Ultimately, so it's not just my head, but in my heart, that I can see how this would be a good use of my time and energy. And so what am I going to do? If someone asks me to join, I'm going to say yes, right? That if I frame this out, that is the perfect recruitment cycle. You actually hit on my head, you hit on my heart. And when you asked me to do something, the right words came out of my mouth. There's nothing better than working through the think, feel, do concept for your organization. And it might not be that you say it's a robust and unique experience, but what is it you want them to think about you? Because Lord knows if you don't walk the walk or talk the talk or whatever other jargon you want to use, if you don't do those things, then they won't think and or feel, then therefore they won't do. I think that made sense. I'm pretty sure it did, but we'll move on so that way it doesn't get too funky here. So what I did was I sort of spent a little bit of time and outlined what we would call a brief. Again, this is a way, the first three, the insight, the reasons to believe, and the key takeaway, would never actually get said or shown to a potential new member, but it's a way of framing out your thinking so that you could identify, if in this example, I was looking for targeting a freshman or a new student at the university. If I think about them holistically, if I think about that audience, the insight from their perspective is, I'm new to this school. I want to make my mark here, but I'm not clear on how to get there. So you actually have to think about this from your campus perspective and write it in such a way that you are putting yourselves in the shoes of others. And by doing that, you will find where the opportunities are for you to really communicate your value, communicate the value of your product to the individual that you're trying to reach. Then, when I say reasons to believe, or when we say reasons to believe, it's articulating what are the different components. Again, when we talked going backwards, right? What are those things that we have that are strategic differentiators, and how can I frame them back to that individual? Well, for someone who's looking to make their mark, I probably want to talk about formal development opportunities like the Balanced Men program, or formal development opportunities. I want to talk about leadership opportunities and workshops. And also I want to, sprinkle in the concept of not doing that alone, by having someone to engage with, by doing chapter meetings and these things that you get to do. It's really, I can use those as fodder for conversations as we're engaging. So then what is it that I want them to leave any conversation with me thinking about? And so the key takeaway might be, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of that new student, that SigEp has the support and the framework to help me be the best I can. And so ultimately, whenever I want to frame, or whenever I want to deliver a call to action, right? Which would mean like, I'm handing out a flyer, I'm using a Facebook ad, I'm putting something out for folks. I know that if these are the folks I'm targeting and I'm delivering a message to new students, freshmen, I likely want to articulate that SigEp offers a proven path to getting the most out of college. Join today. And the last part, this is like classic marketing where folks miss it. And it's the same thing as classic recruitment. Folks miss the opportunity to ask. You actually have to ask someone for someone to say yes. I've never found someone who joined a fraternity without ever being asked. Same thing, I've never found someone who got married without being asked, right? So if you don't put that last part of that call to action, join today, you've missed the largest opportunity to get someone to say yes to you. So I've been droning on now for, I think, about 14 minutes, maybe 15 at this point. So I want to give you a couple more tips that I believe could be extremely helpful. And then underneath it, you'll see each time there's like an action item, things to think about or things that you might try on. It's like a shirt, man. If it doesn't fit, don't worry, put on something else. But at least you're trying new things. And so I'm going to give you 3 of them. Let's work with the first one. Train your team, right? So identify brothers on your recruitment teams who should actually be leveraged to engage specific targets. In other words, new students, get someone who either has been a new student recently, sophomore, junior, whatever the case may be, or someone who's just really good, maybe an ambassador for the school, someone who just knows enough that you can arm them with talk tracks that actually are specifically engaged, specifically set up to engage that freshman PNM, right? And have them practice. Conduct a skills workshop, actually work with and partner with the headquarters team and the recruitment trainers. Folks across the country can help you conduct these in a way where you can actually practice doing it. And so I would start by identify a unique target audience. Identify one unique one, whether that is the student leaders, because you're trying to engage folks who are sophomores and juniors. Even I heard earlier, there's some folks who are actually recruited 2 seniors this fall to their chapter or to a chapter. Like that, there's a certain conversation that has to happen there to make value for someone who only has 9 months left in their college experience. So lay out that sample conversation and talk track. And then I want you to practice it a couple times a day. Just walk through it. What would I say? And what if they said this? And what would I say? And what would they say? And what if they say this? And practice that so much so that then when you get to the point, try it on a potential new member. Then figure out what worked and what didn't. Oh, it really didn't work when I said this. Ooh, this got me down a bad path and I really didn't know how to get out of it. Optimize, adjust, and then build those talk tracks over time so that you can start sharing them and training them with your team. Second, This one's sort of the more heady, right? Seek first to understand, right? So features and benefits are cool. Don't get me wrong. I hit on a bunch of features and benefits. But ultimately, if you go in talking about features and benefits right off the jump, you've moved away from the primary conversation, which is understanding your target, understanding the person that you're talking to. Always, 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 always. I couldn't get that many words in the slide. Always start with questions. Spend more time listening, less time talking. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in the proper proportion. Ultimately, you will find a way in. You will find a connection point if you've done it that way and you start with questions first. And so the action item or the thing that you might try is write a list of 25 questions you could ask a potential new member. And of that group, mix the levels, right? So what does that mean when I say levels? Well, like a level 1 question may be, where are you from? Where's your hometown? That's a level 1 question. Really easy to answer. I can answer it pretty quickly and it doesn't take a whole lot of thinking. Then switch it up and ask a level 5 question. Level 5 question. Tell me the last time you were genuinely scared of something. Excuse the typo. You were genuinely scared of something. You're going to get a completely different answer than Erie, Pennsylvania, Providence, Rhode Island. Like, you're going to get to who that person is. And again, find a way that you can ultimately drive the conversation because you've practiced those talk tracks to get you to fraternity. Last but not least, complexity kills. I don't care what anyone says. Embrace the challenge of simplicity. Use words people understand. Reframe chapter activities and actions so your audience is leaning in. When you say words people don't understand, they pull back. I'm confused. What does that mean? But if you say things everyone can understand, they will go forward. I would look at every activity you do, everything from chapter meetings all the way to Grand Chapter Conclave in Greece. Reframe them in language that every single person can understand and use that language when you're talking to someone from now on. Because until they join the fraternity, they don't get it. Until they get educated, go to sessions, learn, how can they be expected to know what Carlson Leadership Academy is, what the Ruck Leadership Institute is? If you articulate it in those words, it means nothing and it's wallpaper. Do your best to actually get directly to the heart of it. It's the Top Gun leadership experience for undergraduates across the country for 150 dudes, or in this year, tons and tons more, right? Like, get to the heart of what it is, and you will be extremely successful in bypassing the complexity that can completely destroy any interaction. Now, I guess to wrap this all up very quickly, it gets down to a couple things. Be super simple. Get directly to the point. Know your audience at a fundamental level so that you actually can figure out what are the right pieces, the right levers to pull to get someone to engage with you. And then the last part, which we didn't get into today, but is pick the channels to actually engage with them. And I would argue the number one channel, the number one way that you should be engaging with as many people as possible is face-to-face, whether that's in human form or over a Zoom conference. And I look forward to talking with you guys now if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Dave. We've got some questions that have been thrown into the chat that I'll start reading off here. First one, in terms of selling SigEp, a lot of our chapters right now feel like they're facing an uphill battle with it being mid-semester, especially mid-semester during a pandemic, and struggling to overcome some obstacles with potential new members joining now. Know that this can get into a little bit of how do we overcome objections, but from a selling SigEp standpoint, what would be some recommendations that you would have for chapters to effectively sell SigEp and sell their chapter experience, knowing that we're about midway through the semester as of now?
So the first thing I would challenge to the premise of the question is the fact that that means we still have 7 months left of this school year. Okay, right? So flip the conversation is we're actually only 6 weeks into the school year. Heck, in California on trimesters, they probably just started like a week ago, right? Like there's so much time left. And if we start with, yikes, we've already missed our window, then it's like a defeatist attitude. So I would challenge the premise of the conversation. And then I would say that it comes down to there is so much there. Said differently, my dad no longer here, right? When he before he passed, though, he would regularly say things like, hey, it's better to, both eyes open and both feet touch the floor today. It was a great day, right? And so you have 52 great weeks ahead of you between now and today next year. And so how can we attack those 52 weeks? I got 52 reasons between chapter meetings, between engagements, and ultimately long-term what we can do with our friends and family or other Greek organizations over time when we get post-pandemic. Like, we have to just be comfortable with the fact that we only have the time that we have. So why would you pass up the opportunity? You should be joining today. And I would challenge you to, I'm pushing back on you to say that I think the premise of the question is backwards.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. We've got a few questions that have come in that I think are hitting on some of the same things. So I'll kind of try to combine all this together into one. But a bunch of questions coming in about how to differentiate either marketing or advertising the chapter, and how that can be different from maybe other student groups and organizations that are trying to market and sell their experiences as well, on top of a lot of just, say, white noise that students are hearing because of maybe just an influx of emails or just communications given the circumstances this semester. So question there, really boiling that down, what are some specific tips that you would have for chapters of really differentiating how they market their experience and their chapter given everything that may be going on right now?
Yep. So I think there's probably two white spaces as opposed to white noise, right? So one, I still believe there's an opportunity for quote unquote hand-to-hand combat, right? Going to the places where the people are, leaders of organizations, leaders of non-Greek letter organizations, and having a human-to-human contact interaction with them. Engaging with the presidents and vice presidents of the student program board, the student government, those leadership organizations. And then what the pitch to them isn't so much about them having to take on a leadership role. It is, we want to enhance your leadership ability, or we are actually so impressed by your leadership that we want to surround ourselves with more leaders, because that's what we want to do too. Oh, P.S. we have these other components: sound mind, sound body, the concept of balance, and doing it with a whole bunch of like-minded individuals. I think that message resonates with those people. If you are targeting them correctly, they would be ripe to engage with. So again, I think if you want to go out with a big poster board on the, on the quad, right? If you want to go out with a big poster board, or you want to go out with social media messaging, which is in most cases going to be wasted money, I would challenge that's not the way. I would push to go and find the person that you want, as opposed to saying, what if we just put a reach campaign? So in marketing terms, right, we talk about reach and frequency, right? So reach being, I want to get as many people to see this thing as possible, and frequency, I want them to see it multiple times. Excuse, I don't have a big camera here. You can't see, Anyway, I would say that it is more important, rather than going for a reach play and getting 20,000 people on campus to see it, I want the right 40 people to see it. And that's what I'd spend most of my effort from between now and then focused on.